Hi guys, so we are continuing our work with rational expressions. We're actually going to revisit simplifying rational expressions again. So this is what we started out with. We started out with simplifying and then the excluded values. Then we moved into multiplying and dividing, and then we got into adding and subtracting. Now we're backing up a step again back to simplifying. So this is going to be a little bit new. It'll be the same as before. You will factor and cancel. Fractions, if you have the same thing on the top and the bottom, you cross them out. That's called canceling. So that still happens. You factor and then cancel. What's new is this negative factor trick that I'm going to show you. It's going to come up in every single problem in this assignment, and it is not a long assignment. I just want you to practice this and learn this negative factor trick a few times so you get it down. So I will do the evens. I will assign the odds. As you can see, there are 8 problems total, so only 4 problems for your assignment. All right, so we start with number 2. I need to factor and cancel. The numerator is a trinomial, so I'm going to do trinomial factoring. So n, and then I need 2 numbers that'll multiply to 18 and add up to -9, and I think 3 and 6 do the trick. In fact, if I make them both minus and -3 and -6, they multiply to +18, they add up to -9. The denominator can't be factored per se. It's 3 minus n. There's nothing to pull out. It's definitely not a trinomial, so you can't do that thing to it. But I'm not going to just write it over here. We're already getting to this thing that I'm calling the negative factor trick. So here's the deal. Do you see how this is similar to that, but not the same? Now, if it was addition, it would be no big deal. If you had n plus 3 on top of a fraction and 3 plus n on the bottom of a fraction, that's the same thing. Addition is what we call commutative, just like you learned when you were a kid. Pick any 2 numbers like 6 and 4. 6 plus 4 and 4 plus 6, they're both 10. They equal each other. So these would cancel. But it does not work with minus. If you have 6 minus 4 and 4 minus 6. If you try to work this out, you end up with a 2 on top and a -2 on bottom. The 2's cancel, but then you're still left with this negative sign. So that's kind of a thing to deal with. So what you're going to see in every problem, we're going to have sort of these two factors, terms, top and bottom, that are almost the same but kind of different, so they don't exactly cancel. Well, so what do? Well, we're going to do the -1 factor. I am going to factor out of this a -1. And if I do factor that out, it's going to give me a -3 and a plus n. If I divide both of these by -1, 3 divided by -1 is -3. N divided by -1 is positive n. Now that's getting too messy. I got to delete all that. So when the factors almost match but aren't the same, they're like switched, you factor a -1 out. Having done that, the top isn't going to change, but the bottom you can rewrite like this. -3 plus n becomes n minus 3. And now you're allowed to cancel those out, and you get n minus 6 over -1. And this is a simple division problem. N divided by -1 is -n, and -6 divided by -1 is +6. That's the answer. Or alternatively, you could invert it and call the answer 6 minus n. Let me scroll down to number 2 and see if either one of those is the right answer. -n plus 6. So the first answer I got is the right answer. In fact, I won't confuse the issue. I'll just get rid of that. We'll call that good enough. If you didn't quite catch on, I got 3 more examples, and they're more or less going to work out the same way. So you just got to bear with me and see if you can catch on as I go. Okay, so again, the rule is factor and then cancel. The numerator of this rational expression can be factored. We can use common factoring. There's a 10 in common. Factor out the 10, you get x minus, and then if you factor 10 out of 10, 10 divided by 10 is 1. On the bottom, you have 1 minus x, but up here you have x minus 1. So I'm going to factor out a negative 1. That's going to give me negative 1 plus x, which then is 10 x minus 1 over negative 1 x minus 1. See, so I invert these, I switch them around to turn it into that. Those cancel out. I'm left with 10 over negative 1, and that's a simple division problem. 10 divided by negative 1 is negative 10. So the answer to number 4 should be negative 10. Oh, where am I? Right there, negative 10. Okay, so are you getting to see a pattern here? After you factor it, you end up with two things that look really close but aren't quite the same, and doing the negative 1 factor trick sort of makes it work. Number 6. Number 6 is similar to number 4 in that I can do common factoring on top. Can you look at both of these terms and think of what they have in common? Okay, if you said 7, you are right. You can factor a 7 out of here. You get x minus 4. And the bottom, as you can see, is 4 minus x. Those again are reversed. So I factor a negative 1 out of the bottom, divide a negative 1 out of both of those, you get negative 4 plus x. Now the factor on the bottom can be inverted. Negative 4 plus x is the same as positive x minus 4, which makes those cancel. 7 divided by negative 1 is negative 7. Number 6, you should have negative 7, and there it is. So again, the basic steps that we learned last week, factor and cancel, those apply. It's just once you factor, you're going to notice this weird thing about two factors that don't really cancel, they kind of cancel, and you do the negative 1 factor trick to fix it. Number 8. Number 8's a little different. This time the factor part is on the denominator. So it's a trinomial. I'm going to do the trinomial factoring, b and b. Numbers that'll multiply to negative 24 and add up to negative 2. I think minus 6 and positive 4 do the trick. They multiply to negative 24 and they add up to negative 2. Now look, the top is 6 minus b. The bottom is b minus 6. Sounds like my dog's trying to say hello to you guys. Yeah. All right. I don't know what's got him so upset. Probably the neighbor's dog is barking. Anyway, I'm going to factor a negative 1 out of the top. When I factor a negative 1 out of both of these, it's going to turn into negative 6 and plus b. And if my 6's look like b's, I'm sorry. But hopefully you can deal. Got just a brief more time with me before the school year's over, deal with my little handwriting issues. All right, so the numerator here, now let me use a different color. Negative 6 plus b, I can rewrite this as b minus 6. The bottom, b minus 6, b plus 4. These cancel out. That leaves me with negative 1 over b plus 4. Let me see if that's the final answer, if they do something else with it. Okay, so they bring the negative out into the front. So that would be a good enough answer, but if you want to rewrite it this way, just as good. Okay, so only 4 problems. My examples kind of mimic the problems you're going to be doing in a lot of ways. Factor and cancel, that's the rule, just like the other assignment we did last week. But when you get to the point where things look kind of like they're going to cancel, but not exactly, that's where you factor a negative 1 out. That changes the signs, reverse it, and then everything cancels out, and you're good to go. All right, good luck on this. Contact me if you have questions. Remember, you have you have today and tomorrow to work on this. No new work Wednesday, and hopefully it works out well for you.